Jersey.
Part of the William Patterson Broadcast Network. Brave New Radio.
Brave New Radio. Give us your tired, your poor, your hungry, your rockers, your punks, your freaks, your geeks, your Greeks, your party animals, your gangsters, your commuters, your residents, your students, your alums, your lawyers, your truckers, your calls, your tweets. And we'll give you rock, classic, indie, punk, alternative, easy, hard, raps, rhymes, mixes, and drops. We'll give you kick-ass music because we're WPSC 88.7 FM. Brave New Radio. Sound good?
Well, good morning. Good morning. Good morning. All right. Good morning to you. We are kicking off another edition of the Reading Circle with your host, Marc Medley. As you just heard, my guest is already on the line. I'm going to get her introduced shortly. But as we always do our ritual and routine, I always remind you each Saturday morning that we read from two books. Since it is the Reading Circle, I kick off the show with reading, and even before we do that, we kick off letting folks know in the area what the weather is going to be like for the day. So we're going to go ahead and do that. I'll get my guest introduced, share some information with you, and the interview will be underway right now. And with the weather here in the Wayne, New Jersey, northern New Jersey area, we can expect highs of today of 88 with a low of 61. It's going to be partly cloudy. It's going to clear up tonight, again dropping to a low of 61. Tomorrow, a big ball of sun, mainly sunny, high of 89, low of 65 with a few clouds overnight. Then on Monday, sunny again, sun and a few passing clouds, high of 82, low of 66. Expect some scattered thunderstorms during the evening. There's about a 40% chance of rain on Monday night. And then Tuesday, again, mostly sunny skies, high of 88, low of 61. Generally fair on Tuesday night, and rounding out our forecast again, a big ball of yellow sun, 86 as a high, 61 as a low. Mostly sunny skies, a few clouds from time to time on Wednesday night. So for those of you who are fans of summer like I am, there are no complaints. We went into a mini heat wave here in the northern New Jersey area, and you will not get one complaint out of me because I am a summer baby. As a matter of fact, today kicks off the best month out of the 12, and that is none other than the month of August, because that is the month of my birth, the month of my marriage, the month of my wife's birth, two of my daughter's births in the month of August. So August has been a good month to me, and we are entering it. The only downside, if there is such a thing as a downside, is my vacation is coming to a close. So before you know it, I will actually be back in the office in a couple of weeks. But I am going to enjoy my time while I am off. And as I said, in terms of the heat, someone has a picture on Facebook or the social media of last winter whenever we were snowed in. And it had a wonderful reminder that just remember when you were complaining about all this snow. So for those of you who might be complaining about this heat, just think back to all that snow in the winter months. Well, that's it for the weather, brought to you right here from the WP 88.7 FM Weather Center. As I say again, this is your host, Marc Medley. The show is The Reading Circle with Marc Medley, and we read. So we kick off the show starting with two books. The first is What Can Happen When We Pray, and that is a daily devotional. Has no year associated with it, only the date. So for today, August the 1st, only a prayer away. For this child I prayed, and the Lord has granted me the petition that I made to him. 1 Samuel 1:27. Today's prayer. Like Hannah, we must pray for the children here and the children to come. Lord, we ask your blessings upon them. Place your mark on their foreheads and claim them as your own. Protect their hearts and minds while guiding them to the knowledge of you. Amen. Today's reflection. As women, we are unique in our ability to have children. We know the joys that motherhood brings because birth is such a celebrated occasion. No one prepares us for the sorrows. It is because of the times to come that we should be ever prayerful. I know that's right. Hannah prayed for a child, but it wasn't to fulfill her loneliness. With the joy that came from giving birth, Hannah was also willing to make the ultimate sacrifice. She knew that the child was not just hers, but God's. We are only the vessels by which our children arrive. We must not let class, race, or social status stop us from praying for all of our children. Don't just pray for your child or the members of your family, but make sure that all of God's children got prayer on their side. Only then will our communities prosper and grow. I know that's right, particularly in this day and time when we don't know when we walk out the door or when our kids walk out the door if we're going to see them again or not. So lift our children, all of our children, not just yours, in prayer. Out of the book Until Today by Iyanla Vanzant. Iyanla for August 1st says, I am faith-filled and fear-free because I have more than enough of what it takes to make it through the rough times and tight places. Life is never going to give up on you because there is something important for you to do. One of the primary purposes and processes of life is the development of character, your nature, the distinctive qualities of your essence. What makes you, you, is developed through experience. If you do not understand that character development is an important process of life, you may be tempted to give up when things get tough. You may even begin to believe that life is against you. More important, you may miss the fact that the very part of your character that requires development is being developed by your response to the things that you are walking through. What you do when your back is against the wall speaks volumes about the nature of your character. Every human weakness is strengthened by experience. Every strength that serves you well in those tight spots is remembered. When things get a little rough, it is always good to remember that you cannot stay where you are forever. Life is continually renewing and redesigning the intricate pieces of your character. When life detects that there is an opportunity for you to advance the name of your character, it will send the perfect situation and people your way. Your job is to respond to everything in a manner that develops and strengthens your character. Until today, you may have thought that what happens to you and around you determines the nature of who you are. Just for today, devote your time and energy to using every experience as a character-building exercise. Allow faith, joy, gentleness, kindness, patience, and peace to be the character-building tools that determine your approach to situations and your response to experiences. Today I am devoted to demonstrating a better, stronger, wiser expression of my true nature and character. That's from the book Until Today. And see, I tell you, for those who don't believe in God or a higher power or whatever name you want to call, I know there is one because it is unfathomable. It is amazing. It is more than interesting that on Saturday mornings how these daily devotionals line up to what the interview is going to be about. And that is not by happenstance. That is not by coincidence. That is by divine providence. And it is meant to be that God knows what the interview is going to be on that particular Saturday morning and has it so that the reading or the daily devotional lines right up. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and get my guest introduced, and then we're going to share some information, and then I'm going to come back and we're going to begin our chat. My guest this morning is Carmella Carter. She is more than a motivational speaker and life coach. She is also the founder of her own company, I Am Grace. Carmella had a childhood unlike many others. Growing up in Trenton, New Jersey, all right, New Jersey, she was accustomed to seeing sex, drugs, and violence daily, and unfortunately became a product of her environment. She became a mother at the tender age of 16 and had to face more difficulties than what she was prepared to handle. So both of our readings lined right up, because the first one was about praying for our children. While most teens in her position would have the guidance and assistance of their parents, Carmella had to deal with the fact that both of her parents were addicted to both drugs and alcohol. This left all the work of teen parenting on Carmella's shoulders, forcing her to grow up overnight. Without any direction or wisdom from her parents, she dropped out of high school in the 11th grade so that she could raise her child as a full-time mother. Carmella ran into numerous roadblocks while trying to find housing, substantial finances, childcare, and education, but made it a priority to provide the best possible life for her and her son during the time. Only 3 years after giving birth to her son, at the age of 19, Carmella became a medical assistant. It was the position that helped Carmella to begin to give her son the better life that she had dreamed of. She continued her career as a medical assistant until the age of 26. She then became a medical assistant instructor until the age of 34, where she ultimately transitioned to medical sales. During her job as an instructor, Carmella mentored hundreds of men and women of various age groups on how to pursue their goals and obtain success. Also, within that time span of her life, she volunteered at GVM Kingdom Kids Mentorship Program. That position allowed her to touch the lives of over 500 children, teens, and young adults. She hosted events such as Youth Extravaganza, back-to-school drives, Toys for Tots Christmas Party, and Black History skits. This brought Carmella great joy, and she finally realized that she had found her purpose. In 2013, Carmella founded her own life coaching and mentoring company, I Am Grace. Her primary goal is to help teens and young parents understand the importance of family values and how to ensure a determined, committed, successful lifestyle. In May 2012, Carmella completed one of her life missions and graduated college with a degree in social science. She was the first woman and second grandchild to graduate college. This accomplishment stopped the lineage of college dropouts and began a new one of college graduates. Carmella enjoys writing, reading, traveling, dancing, and spending family time, especially with her 4 children, Sam, Zanaya, Zoe, and Caden. She lives her life every day by her personal model: inspire and motivate purposeful living. Carmella, good morning and welcome to the Reading Circle with Marc Medley.
Good morning, Mark. How are you today? Thank you for that awesome introduction.
Well, I tell you, thank you. And I always tell my guests, because a lot of times they'll get shy or they'll get bashful or they'll get modest and say, oh, I didn't want you to read the whole thing. And a lot of times I tell them, I want to read the whole thing because someone in the listening audience will be encouraged and inspired by it. The hope is that they'll hear your story, they'll hear your bio and say, wow, if that can happen for Carmella, that can happen for me. So I always, regardless of how long it is, unless it's like 5 or 10 pages, but if it's something that with the listening audience, so that again, they will be encouraged and inspired by what they hear. So I am more than happy. Matter of fact, I am just glad for you reading that. I mean, I've already been inspired just reading through that this morning. So I'm going to share some information with the listening audience, and then we're going to come back and we're going to go ahead and get busy with our interview.
Okay.
The cow says,
I love you.
To a child, it's just something else to play with. Lock it up because 1.7 million children in the U.S. are living with unlocked and loaded guns. Get involved at ceasefireusa.org.
All right, you just heard the public service announcement. Lock it up. Matter of fact, just get rid of it. There are too many guns out here. That's why we're having all this killing. Now, don't get me wrong. I am not stupid nor naive. I know that old saying that guns don't kill people, people kill people. But the truth of the matter is we have too much access to guns. Too many people have them. They're in the wrong hands, even when they're licensed. That's why you had the service announcement there that just said lock it up, because those that have them licensed still have them lying around the house and children can get a hold of them. Well, as I said earlier, it is always blows me away in terms of how the daily devotional lines up with the guest. And it really doesn't matter what genre the guest writes. Really, the daily devotional lines up with that. And I always start the show, Carmella, with those two readings because I've been doing this show now for 14 years. And the bulk of those 14 years, I've used those two books because the show is only on once a week. And so the chances of somebody hearing one of the devotionals twice is like slim to none because there's no year associated with it, only the dates. So each year, the show falls on a different date on a different Saturday, so you're probably going to hear something different. But it amazes me how the passages line up with what we're going to talk about. And as I was reading through your bio, both of those passages that I read from What Can Happen When We Pray as well as Until Today leaped out at me as I was going through your bio. Wow. Okay. First off, now Trenton. I see Trenton, New Jersey. Are you still in Trenton? Are you still in the New Jersey area, or are you somewhere else in the country?
No, I'm still in New Jersey. I do not live in Trenton anymore. I transitioned from Trenton about 12 years ago. So I don't live in Trenton. I live in South Jersey. So.
Okay, so you are in New York, calling in from California, so it might be 3 o'clock in the morning their time. So at least it's 6 o'clock where you are, too.
I agree. Thank God I didn't have to wake up that early.
So it is, as I said, around 6 o'clock our time. You're here in the New Jersey area as well. I'm in the northern part of New Jersey in the third largest city in the state, and that is the city of Patterson. In Trenton, I am well aware of. I know the city. I know a few churches in there. I know a couple of pastors down in Trenton. And I certainly have some friends who are in the assembly and in the state senate. They're back and forth into Trenton. So I'm looking at this bio here, and I see where you're now. Your bio reminds me of the kids that I serve on a daily basis, because when I'm not sitting behind the microphone, I'm a principal of an elementary school, of an urban school, and the bio that I see here in the beginning for my kids is a lot of them. And so the difference, and I guess as we talk throughout the hour, is how did you overcome all of that? So talk to me a little bit. Okay, so now I see here at the tender age of 16, you say you were faced with the difficulties more than you had in your mind that it would be like. Let's talk a little bit like what was going through your mind now. I mean, first of all, as a student, when you were in school, what were you seeing? What was going on?
Well, Mark, like you, I also service a high school student in Willingboro High School. So every day I go to school and I see who I was in those children. So it brings me great joy when I go to work every day and I see these students and I'm able to coach them through life. So what was going through my head at that time at 16 years old was survival. How was I going to survive this environment? I mean, I would go to school and my teachers would tell me, Carmella, you can be anything in the... I mean, you could just put it and you can do it. And when I look at them and when they're telling me this, I mean, I couldn't really believe them because when I went home, I didn't see the doctor that you said I can be. I didn't see the lawyer that you said I can be. I didn't even see the nurse that you said I can be. Only thing I saw was the drug dealer, or I saw the drug addict, or I saw the gang violence. So for me, when my teachers would tell me those things, there was a lot of doubt in my mind. But at 16, when I got pregnant, I knew that there was no way in this world that I wanted to bring my child into an environment the way I was brought up. So I had to do something different. I had to put some self-perseverance and self-confidence and say, I need help. And I began to pray, and I said, God, I need help. I want to raise this child better than I was raised. And I went forward and did what I had to do.
Well, one thing that, I mean, right off the bat, I mean, just listening to you say that your teachers were sharing and telling you you could be, you can do, and we do that every day. But to hear it come from somebody to say, you know what, I heard that, but that's not what I was seeing. Now, you just kind of clicked a light switch on for me, because we are constantly sharing with our kids what they can do and the potential that we see out of them and the encouragement. And yet you just said something, you said, but that's not what I see when I go home. And for the bulk of my kids, that's not what they see when they go home. And I guess our challenge is to help them, even though what they see when they go home, is to help them see beyond that. And when you say you're counseling kids, as adults and adults for that matter, you're not telling these kids what you think. Because for some of us, you know, we're just telling them what the textbook says. But you're telling them what you know and what you've experienced. How different is that for you in terms of connecting than for someone that may not have had the experiences that you've had?
Well, it's a real difference in saying that I've had coworkers who never experienced what I experienced, and they're trying to tell the students the same thing. But then when they say, well, you know what, talk to Carmella. And the students are coming and be like, Miss Carter, you don't understand because I have a foster mom, and you don't understand because my mother is not in my life and I want her there. And I would say, babe, I know I look nice on the outside, but that little girl that you are expressing that I don't understand, I was her. No way, Miss Carter. Absolutely. That was me. I grew up in Trenton, and then once I say Trenton, it's like, oh, Miss Carter from Trenton. It's like this big thing.
Right.
And then they're able to, that little piece gives a connection. And then from there, I'm like, yeah, my parents were on drugs. They wasn't there for me, really. Yeah, but I had to persevere. And then it's like giving my own personal story allows them to really see that there is hope. There is hope. And I take great pleasure in something that we said, that we tell our children in our schools, that we can be this, but they don't really see it when they go home. So I take great joy in going to different schools. I was invited to different schools in Trenton and to share my story of hope. And then they're able to look on stage and see someone who was in their shoes. And then it's like, oh, wow, so I can be an entrepreneur. I can really own my own business, because if she went through it, and then it's like a reality. So I challenge some people who have made success strides and have came from urban areas to go back and show these children that they can really be someone.
Well, you know, it's interesting. There's a song. As a matter of fact, it's a song now. I used to always hear it in church, and then one of the bishops made a song out of it. I'm glad I don't look like what I've been through.
Absolutely.
And you know, when we first connected through social media, and I pulled up your websites and saw your YouTubes, and I said, that's a fine sister. And I did. So I'm saying all that to say, in terms of when people now see you now, if you just walked up on them and started talking, they would have no clue of what you've gone through.
Absolutely.
And yet, that's part of your testimony.
Absolutely.
So,
and I used to be ashamed of it, Mark. I used to be ashamed before God showed me my purpose. I didn't tell anyone I grew up from Trenton. Because I transitioned when I was 23 to Burlington, the Burlington area, and I didn't, wasn't proud of where I came from and how I grew up. But then when God showed me my purpose and He said, I want you to share your story, and I said, I'm not telling nobody about that. You want me to tell people about abuse, neglect? No, not doing it. But the more I encountered those children for that 12 years working at GVM Kingdom Kids, I volunteered actually for just 12 years. The more I saw the children and the more stories that they brought to me in confidentiality, I was like, okay, I have to let these children know that I've been there I know what it's like. And in terms of the way I look, God showed me that a while ago. He said, never change the way you look. I want you to keep up your appearance no matter what.
Right.
And I mean, there are times, who wants to look happy all the time? Who wants to look great all the time? I want to go out and I want to look a mess sometimes, but he said no, because you never know who you're going to encounter. And when you encounter them and you share what I've done in your life, I need you to look the part. So
I know that's right. For those of you in the listening audience, I hope you've been with us since 6 o'clock. I'm going to share some more information with you, and you know what to do while I'm sharing this 30 seconds or so with you. That is to get on all of your social media sites, and I mean all of them. I'm just fortunate enough that Hootsuite connects all of mine, so when I send out one message, it's a blast. But if you don't have Hootsuite and you have to go on one at a time, I don't care. You get on all your sites and you let someone know that they need to log on to gobrave.org. so that they can hear this inspiring interview with Carmella Carter. Because you never know, Carmella may say something throughout this time that could change somebody's life who is listening on their computer, or if they're in the northern New Jersey area, on their radio. So let someone know. If you have any influence whatsoever, get on your mobile device, text somebody, tweet somebody, Instagram somebody, Pinterest somebody, Facebook somebody, LinkedIn somebody. You do what you need to do to get folks around you that you know to log on to gobrave.org so that they can hear Carmella share her story. I'm going to share this information with you, and we shall return. Actually, we're not going anywhere. That's why I don't say anything about taking a break or going anywhere, because we're not. I just need you to tune in and listen in to the information that's shared, and to let someone know that they need to hear what is being said this morning.
The cow says,
I love you.
To a child, it's just something else to play with. Lock it up, because 1.7 million children in the U.S. are living with unlocked and loaded guns. Get involved at ceasefireusa.org.
Take a look under your bed. Find stuff under there? What about jobs? No? Now try your basement. There's a pair of overalls that overall you're not so into anymore. A perfectly good laptop that hasn't seen your lap in months. And even more stuff. But still no jobs? Well, you really have both. See, stuff is defined as household articles considered as a group. Sometimes this stuff is no longer needed. Wait, no longer needed? That can't be right. Because remember those jobs you were looking for? Those are really needed. And they're the stuff inside your stuff. Even inside that winter coat that moved with you to Phoenix. Our job is to unlock those jobs. And it starts when you donate your stuff to your local Goodwill. Here's how we do it. When you donate to Goodwill, we sell your stuff to provide job training for people right here in your community. So just by teaming up with Goodwill, you help create jobs. And isn't that worth parting with the leftover keytar from your 80s cover band? Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs. Find your nearest donation center at goodwill.org. A message from Goodwill and the Ad Council.
All right, this is the Reading Circle with your host, Marc Medley. My guest this morning is Carmella Carter, and we're working our way up to the naming and the launch of her company, I Am Grace. And as you hear the story, I'm sure you can begin to connect the dots and put two and two together as to why she would name her company I Am Grace. And then she's in the process of writing a book. Hence her being a guest here on the Reading Circle with Marc Medley. So, Carmella, we're talking about being able to talk to, I'm just sitting here, wow. It's just reading the whole passage this morning about praying for our children. And see, for me, I was extremely blessed in terms of kind of like having the Brady Bunch, Cosby Show, or any of those Make Room for Daddy, any of those shows that were on TV that always showed this little perfect family life. And when I say my family life was not perfect, but what I'm saying in terms of having both parents the entire time up until I was grown and my father passed away. My mother and father were together. Me, my mother, father, sister was in the house. We had an ideal life. I mean, we were not rich, but in comparison to some of my little friends, I guess we would have been seen as that. So for me, for a lot of the children who are dealing with like some major issues, I can get an appreciation for it, but that was not my story. But the thing for me is, as I travel and I meet more and more people, less and less of the people I meet, that was their story in terms of having two parents in the home that worked and so forth and so on and so forth. And the thing is that, you know, during that time, I thought that was the way everybody lived. I didn't know any different. But again, as I meet more and more people, it wasn't like that for them. And as I serve the community that I serve, I know it's not like, and then again, homeless. And there's a sensitivity that I've been trying to develop with the teaching staff to help them understand. You know, we have kids in here that are coming here homeless. They're not going to tell you that. We have kids who are coming here who didn't eat last night or this morning for that matter. We had kids coming in here who saw their mama get beat down last night by mama's boyfriend. I mean, just all kinds of horrid situations that a child should not have to go through. And so that's why I asked that question earlier in terms of, you're not telling folks what you think. You're telling folks what you know and have experienced yourself. And the important thing is, because this is the balance. A lot of people will use experiences such as you've described as an excuse of not to do.
Absolutely.
How do you change that mindset of, well, just because you're going through this, you don't get a pass?
Because we live in a generation where everything is handed to me, you know. I don't have a father, so maybe my principal should be my father, you know, or something of that nature. And it's like everything is handed to them. But it's not. You have to really have it in your mind that I cannot be the same. I could have easily transitioned into smoking drugs. I could have easily transitioned into drinking, but that wasn't what I wanted to do. Of course, I tried it, but when I tried it, I feel like God had his hand on me the whole time, you know? So I feel like when I tried it, I was like, oh, my God, it made me scared and paranoid and all of that. So I'm like, I'm never doing drugs, and I'm never drinking to that to make me, to numb the pain, because honestly, those are the things that happen when people are addicted to drugs and they're addicted to alcohol. They're numbing the pain of their reality. So I didn't want to do that. I knew that I had to change the course of lifestyles for my child. He was a boy. He was being brought up in Trenton. I knew he was going to be raised in Trenton for a while. I didn't know that I would transition out. I didn't want him to be the drug dealer that his father was. At the time I looked at him, because my son's father was a drug dealer, gangbanger, and I looked at my son and I said, he can't be him. There's no way he can be him. So whatever I have to do, whatever motivation I have to do, I'll do it. Every day seems like forever in trying to change. So, and most people want every day to rush.
Right. So you're literally trying to unexpose or to show your son something different from his parent as well as his grandparents.
Absolutely.
How difficult is that? How do you get him to see that that's not the way whenever he says, yeah, but mom, dad, or but mom, grandma, granddad, or how do you combat that?
Those questions normally happen when a child is about 4 or 5. That's when they start to look at their parents and emulate for real what, you know, their parents are. So at 4 or 5 years old, I kept him to me when he's growing. So as he's growing, we were together all the time. When I had to go to work or I had to go to school, he was in daycare. I went to the welfare office and I got, assistance with childcare. And the assistance with childcare, he was in a great environment. And when he came home from that, he was with me. And so what he saw was me. So even looking at his grandmother, who I would like to say this before she kills me if she's listening, She has been clean and sober for the last 14 years.
God
My mother
bless. See, that's
yes.
a testament in itself. That's a testimony as well.
Yes, and so she is no longer, and our relationship is strong. She's an amazing woman. She, too, is what grace looks like, and she has her own story of grace. But I had to throw that out there because if she's listening, she's going to say, well, I'm not that anymore.
Well, you know, and you know, hey, everybody got a used to be.
Yep.
One thing or another, what your used to be might be is not my used to be, so forth and so on. So none of us can be trying to look down, or not, or should not, or ought not to be trying to look down nose at anybody, because everybody got something.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, praise God that she has that story of, because I know in my church there are many that have that testimony of I've been clean X amount of years or X amount of hours or X amount of whatever. And we celebrate that because that is something to be celebrated. In terms of going back to this is what you were seeing, and this is just kind of a personal question on my side. In terms of the prettiest and the finest young ladies in high school always were gravitated toward the gangbangers and the tough guys and this, that, and the other. And those of us who were like little book nerds like me, the girls didn't give a second look at. So what? See, this is where I was just trying to get into the mindset of what is it? I mean, especially knowing what you were exposed to, but yet you still gravitated toward someone that was doing that same lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And before I even finish that, how does that now shape what you tell young ladies?
Oh, okay. Well, I found comfort in him because I didn't have a father. So everything, he was like more of provision.
Right.
Because he sold drugs. So the money was there when I needed to eat, you know, or the money is there if I needed a new outfit or something. So he was more of a provision. So now when I talk to young girls about it, and I mean every day it seems like a student comes into my office.
Oh, I know it. I know.
With that same thing, like he does this and he does that. I'm like, but is what he's providing for you more than who you are? Do you love him more than do you love yourself? Because every time you go on a date with him or you give him your body, you are telling yourself, I love him more than I love myself.
Absolutely.
And then I challenged him to see, when you go and see, let's see who you love more, you know? And they say, well, what do you mean, let's see who do I love more? But when he asks you for sex, if you say no, let's see, tell me his actions towards you. And when you tell me his actions towards you and you have to say no, come to me and tell me what happened. And when they do, we sit there and we dissect that thing. And I said, see, you saying no to him, now he didn't call you. Now he's talking to other girls. So that just tells you, who do he love more? He don't love you. That's not what love does.
Right.
And then they're like, oh, my God, Ms. Carter. So, yeah.
Do you ever have a young lady or a young man that kind of you say, Miss Carter, look at you. Everything worked for you. You look good. How come I can't do the same things you did? Do you ever get that?
Because it's my great story. And, yes, I do get that. I do get that. Absolutely.
Because, see, I know the kids. The kids will try to rationalize it. Well, you did all right. You came out okay, so I'll come out okay, too. Yeah, but why do you need to go down that same road of pain? Why do you need to go down that same? Why do you need to fall in that hole that I'm trying to keep you from falling into?
Yeah, and I say stuff like, well, I was also on welfare, so do you want to be on welfare? Well, I also was homeless. Do you want to be homeless? Well, I also my son had to have hand-me-down clothes all the time because I was 16 with no money to have him a baby shower, so he had hand-me-down clothes, so do you want to go through that? And then it's like, oh, you're right.
See, I know that's right. I mean, that's a good comeback. I mean, it really is. Again, I work with kids daily. Matter of fact, I work with kids the bulk of my years. Even when I was a kid, I was working with kids. And I kind of know the type of comeback and rationalizations they will. And that's a good awakening for them. Do you want to go through what I went through? I mean, I know what you see right now, but can you walk in the shoes? Can you take those steps? And the truth is, we're trying to keep you from taking those. I tell kids all the time, I'll go to the board on them. I'm like a football coach. I'll go up to the whiteboard with a mark and say, okay, let's pretend this is a street or a road. And I'll draw a big circle in the middle of the road with a little bit of space on the side to go around it. I said, now, if all of us have told you that we went down this road and fell in this big hole, and now we're trying to show you how to go down that road and go around this hole, why wouldn't you take that? Why would you argue with us that you want to fall in that hole? And so
thanks for the analogy, because I will be using it.
Oh, no. Because that's, again, I try to show them a road with a pothole. If I can show you how not to go in those potholes or fall in the ditch, why wouldn't you take it? Why? But you do have some that say, well, I don't believe it till I see it. It's like, well, why should you have to? Why can't you let somebody else's experience teach you, as opposed to you having to go through the pain of it? And that's what we're trying to get at, and which is going to move me into, I see how you went through, because you didn't give up. That's the key. For those in the listening audience, the key here is, and one of the readings had it, something about how you react to it. The key is how you react to what your circumstance is. Carmella could have easily said, forget this. I'm just going to lay out and hang out, get drunk, get high, son do what he want to do, raise himself, whatever. But that's not what she did. If you listen to the bio, she continuously moved up in her various medical. She was the medical assistant. Then she moved on to be the medical instructor. Then she moved on into medical sales. So she was always on an upward trajectory despite the circumstances. And that's what the story you got to get here. And I'll share this with you before we move into her starting her business. Carmella, I am a huge kid. Whenever I am not doing what I do in terms of work related, when I go home on my computer, I have a simulator to fly airplanes. I have a simulator to drive 18-wheel trucks. I have Madden football. I'm literally, if I'm not writing or putting music together or doing something, I'm doing that simulator. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I just installed over the last couple of months the 18-wheel simulator, and it was working great with the joystick. But I wanted to have the real experience, so I went out and I bought the steering wheel with the pedals that go with it. And when I connected it, it just was not talking to each other. The simulator game and the steering wheel was not talking to each other. Now, the company that made the joystick, the company that made the steering wheel was the same company. So I said, now, it's reading the joystick. Why isn't it reading the steering wheel? And when I tell you it took me all of almost 2 days of intense, I mean like 6, 7, 8 hours straight of sitting there, troubleshooting, trying this, trying that, trying this, calling Microsoft, calling Thrustmaster, the company that made the joystick, calling the company Scania, emailing them and trying this, going into the computer, trying to change the code, going in, downloading patches. My point in the story is this. I was determined that steering wheel and that software was going to work. And when I went to bed on Thursday night, because I had spent all day Thursday with it. When I say 9 o'clock Thursday morning to like 11 o'clock Thursday night. And I finished the chat with Microsoft, and I went to bed, and I said to God, as overnight, as I'm sleeping, help me get the answer to this thing. And sure enough, on Friday, by midday, the answer had come through. All the different things I had tried and all the different... My point in that story is, and I put it on Twitter and the other social media, nothing beats a sustained and persistent effort. And once again, I'm seeing here in your life story that sustained and persistent effort. And I see it paying off, because the progression went from assistant to instructor to sales to working in the GVM kingdom, to the point where you said, you know what, I can start my own business. Let's talk a little bit about that. What was going through your mind whenever you were now putting I Am Grace together? What got you there?
So my last job before, I was on an airplane. Okay. My last job before the I Am Grace came to pass was medical sales. And I didn't like medical sales. It was just something, because I was going through a transition in life at that time. So it was just something to do. So I went to TD Jakes' conference, MegaFest, in 2013. And as I was coming back from MegaFest, I was sitting on the airplane, and I was like, God, I know that you have designed me for more. And I know that there's more to me. And I need you to speak. There's no one on this airplane talking to me. I need you to speak. I need you to tell me what my purpose is. And that's when he told me to do this. He said, I need you to tell people I want you to be a motivational speaker. And I said, I can't speak. I stutter. Like, not only do I stutter, I get nervous, I get anxious, all of that stuff. And he said, I want you to tell the story.
Go ahead, Moses.
And I said, what? And then I went to a mentor that I had been working with, and I shared with her. And then she was like, Carmella, she said, nothing about your life is ordinary. She said, you are grace. And I said, what? And she said, you are grace. And I said, what do you mean I'm grace? She said, you are what God's favor looked like. From the time you were born into foolishness, for God's grace was upon you. And to every step of your life, God's grace and favor has been upon you. She said, so say it with me. Say, I am grace. And I said, I am grace. And then she's like, no, you say it and you mean it. And this lady is a strong woman. She's an awesome woman of God. And I said, I am grace. And she said, no, you say it. I am grace. And then I'm like, I am grace. And at that moment, it hit. That's the name of your company, I Am Grace, because everybody's grace has a different grace story. Everybody has a story of survival. No matter if they grew up in a two-parent household, maybe the father was working too much and showed them a lack of attention.
Right.
Or no matter if they grew up in a two-parent household, maybe they didn't have everything that they wanted, or maybe they grew up in a one-person household. So no matter what their story was, they had a story of grace. And I said, okay, and I'll do it. And all that I do, I humbly say, is because I'm obedient to Christ.
Right.
Nothing that I do today, Mark, is because I wanted this stage or I wanted this. God did this. You know, it was all Him. And every stage of my life, it was just as an obedience to Him, to never give up.
I know that's right. I laughed because whenever you were saying, I can't speak, I stutter, I thought about Moses and Aaron, or Moses whenever God was telling him, you're going to go to Pharaoh and you're going to tell him to let the people go. And he was like, well, wait a minute, I don't public speak.
And that's what I promised. That's what I said to them. I said, no, I get nervous. I have to use the bathroom. All kind of stuff is going on, and you want me to stand and tell people? So let me tell you how funny God is. My first speaking engagement was at a middle school to 500 students.
Oh yeah, that's where if you came to my school, that's what it would be. I mean, I would probably do you my upper grades, but that's you got talk about baptized by fire.
Oh my! You talk about somebody nervous. I made it into a skit, and I went on stage and I did what I had to do. And when I was finished, the counselor came up to me who invited me. She said, that was so awesome. And then she was like, I was like, it was a skit. She said, what? I said, I had to plan that thing out. But I knew that, like, who I was, and I didn't want to make God look bad. I didn't want to, I wanted to be excellent in what I did. So in order for me to be excellent, I did what I do best. And I said, I'm going to get up here and I'm going to pretend, I'm going to act, and I'm going to tell my story. And it worked out great. So.
I'm sure it did. What I found is, and I didn't realize you were in the New Jersey area, so we'll have to see at some point throughout the school year. We might have to hook something up. You might have to take a ride up the turnpike.
Okay.
And because what I've noticed is it's almost like, I guess, any other teenager. Like, you hear your parents all the time, but whenever you get someone from the outside or someone that they don't know, they tend to really receive the message, especially when it's a younger person. Now, see, you would come across as a young person like me, your age group. So for my teenage girls, for my 8th grade girls, because I had the experience with some other speakers that I've had come in, they really do latch onto, and a lot of it is kind of going back to what you were saying about the boyfriend being the father figure. A lot of times for them to see somebody like you come in dressed, well-spoken, look good, they take that on as, wow, I wish she was my mom. or wow, one day I'm going to be like her, or that's my big sister. So a lot of times the message comes across in a totally different way, and they really will be receptive and receive it. Have you found that, like, whenever you go to the various schools, that the girls or whatever will really, like, after your speech, come up, like, they'll surround you? Because that's what I've seen my kids do. They come up and surround the speaker. It's almost like you become a celebrity.
Yes. I mean, they want to take pictures. Like, oh, let's take a picture. Can I have a shirt? And they just so excited. Your story really inspired me. And even when I leave, I get emails from 8th graders.
Right.
Or, and they're like, thank you so much because what you said, I know I can make it. And it makes me feel good. But not only these, the students are coming up to me, but the teachers are as well. And with my book coming out, actually, one of the teachers, the last school that I spoke at, she came up to me and said, when is your book coming out? And I never even spoke about my book. When is your book coming out? And I was like, it's on the way. It was just a boost. It was a boost of confidence that I know I was going in the right direction with the book. But, she came up like, when is your book coming out? And the teachers come up to me as well as an amazement, the story of survival. So,
and that is a wonderful segue into the book. Talk a little about it, because whenever you're done with it, I'm going to have you back on the air. We'll talk about the book, but we'll whet the listening audience's appetite in terms of, did you get the title for that yet? Or is the book going to be I Am Grace as well? Or kind of what is the book about? Because we won't give it all away, because I'll have you back on whenever you publish it or whenever it's out. Let's talk a little bit about the book.
Okay. Well, before I talk about the book, I do have a GoFundMe account to publish the book because I am trying to get money to publish the book. But it's an inspiration and motivational read. And you're going to be able to reflect on who you are and where you're going and where you've been. And I use biblical stories, life situations, and my own testimony to really put this out there. So it's an inspirational book. It's not a bio about who I am, a bibliography of who I am. It's more of an inspiration and motivational book. And it's a 30-day read, actually. It's going to be a 30-day read. I had several books coming out because when I was writing, the editor, she was like, Carmella, you're writing a different book right now, and you're writing a different book. I'm like, okay. But so it's an inspirational read, and it's a 30-day read. And like I said, I use my story, biblical stories, and to have people just reflect on their own life. Yep.
Now, listening audience, if you caught what she just said, and she's going to have an opportunity to talk about it a little bit more, you have an opportunity to be an investor in this project. You have an opportunity to get in on the ground floor. And one of the beautiful things about technology in 2015, because I'm one of those that love technology, but when it doesn't work, hate it. It's kind of like I'm so reliant on it that, for me, like all the different whiz-bang, but GoFundMe is one of those whiz-bang ideas that came out a few years ago that gives folks an opportunity to help out. In other words, you literally, even though your name might not be mentioned anywhere in the foreword or the introduction or the acknowledgments, but you would know, what, I had a part of that. When the book comes out, you could say, what, a couple of my dollars went to that. You're going to have the opportunity to do that. Carmella's going to share that with you before we get off the air. I encourage you to do so. I will be doing so as well. And there is no such thing as too small of a donation. If it's $2, $5, $10, $12, $20, $25, $30, it really doesn't matter because every little bit helps. And that's the whole thing to it. So are you intending to self-publish? Or are you trying to go through a publishing house? What's kind of like your thoughts in terms of how you're going to get it published? Because again, with the technology, we can self-publish now.
Well, I'm not going to self-publish because I had someone who is a doctor in education who wanted to help me with this process. So I sent her the writing. She edits it and she sends it to the publisher. So that's what's going to happen.
Oh, all right.
I'm definitely not going to self-publish. I don't even know how to do that. But I'm going to focus my efforts in a different area and let the experts handle that area.
And see, that's smart. As a businesswoman, that's smart. You know your strengths, you know your weaknesses. Some people like to tackle the self-publishing piece. It is a learning experience, and other people are just what you just said. You know what? I want to be the talent. I will provide the the words, the ideas, and the concepts, but I need somebody else to do that end of it. And that's a smart move. And even with the funding, I think that's a smart move. There was a story on the news the other day about a Little League baseball team in New York. They've won all the area games around it, and they're supposed to go to the Little League World Series, but the cost of the trip was going to be somewhere for the whole team around $20,000, $20,000 to $25,000. And they had one of those GoFundMe accounts, and I think at the time of the news story, they only had about maybe $500 worth of donations in there. And by the time the news story finished over the next couple of days, they got their $20,000 because they had gotten the publicity. And, you know, whenever they heard the story of the boys, how hard they had worked and how many games they won, and their families really could not afford to send them wherever the Little League World Series was this year. They really didn't have it in terms of airfare and hotel and all that. So that's why they had the GoFundMe account as well. And when the news story came back on, they had their 20,000 plus, and all the little boys on there was thanking everybody for contributing. I'm sharing that story to say is you just never know when folks hear of your effort. And when they hear your story, they're willing to participate in something positive. I mean, we have so much negativity going on in the world that folks have an opportunity to participate in a positive project.
And I appreciate, like you said before, no amount is too small, no amount is too large either.
That's right.
And I'm excited about what God is going to do. And like I said, this is a God thing, so I know that every step of the way that I make, He provides. So I know provision is going to be made.
That's one of my favorite verses in the Bible. That whole story of Abraham and his son when they go up, and Isaac says, I don't see a ram, and that's whenever Abraham turns around and says, "The Lord will provide." And that is one of my favorite stories and verses. So as long as you continue to have that faith, you can rest assured. You don't know how He's going to provide, but He's going to provide, and that book is going to be written. Yeah. Or shall I say, the book is going to be published because you've already been writing it. It's just a matter of getting it published. So that book is going to be published. And so when it is published, you will come back again and we'll talk about the book. Right now, we know it's going to be a 30-day read. So I'm assuming it's something for every day, kind of like the books I started with.
And I gave a challenge to my listening audience, to our audience today. And I said, if you listen, and the first person who inbox me, text me on social media, the name of the book will get a free signed copy of the book. The first person. So I'll have to. So the name of the book is, all of the books are going to be entitled "I Am Grace." Every book that I publish.
So it's a series.
Subtitled. Yes.
Okay, so the series is "I Am Grace." Okay.
And the first one is going to be "Your Life is God's Design."
Your life is God's design.
Yes.
That's what okay. I just want to make sure. All right. So now, listening audience, whenever she gives you her contact information, she said the first one that texts her or social media her in terms of the title of the book, Your Life is God's Design. I'm going to say that once again. Your Life is God's Design will win a free signed copy of the book when it is published. And she's going to give the contact information shortly. And again, her story is one that needs to be heard because the situation, particularly in urban areas, and I don't want to say just in African American and Latino communities because it's all over. Our white brothers and sisters don't get a pass on that. It's just that their issues are a little bit different. And a lot of times they're dealing with even harder drugs like heroin and LSD and cocaine. I mean, they're dealing with a whole different set of drugs, whereas in our community, we're dealing with crack, marijuana, alcohol, but their issues just the same. So while the story in and of itself may not be uncommon, the reaction to it, sadly, is uncommon because too many of our folks get caught up in the circle or the cycle. And have you heard her say she was the first child and grandchild in terms of graduating college?
Absolutely.
A lot of folks would not have gotten to the college level in starting in that situation. That's why, if you come to my school, you'll get a real good feel of everything that I'm saying. Many of my kids step across drug dealers and drug addicts and prostitutes just trying to get to school.
school. Absolutely.
This is what they're stepping across and walking around. And back last year in September, there was a murder right on the corner from my school of a teenage girl. She was coming from basketball practice. I mean, this is their life. This is what they live. And yet, you're saying in your story, I lived that, but I was able to overcome it. And then there's another but, or there's an and, or a however, whatever you want to use. You say, but God, that would not have happened to me had it not been for God. Had I not listened, because that's another piece of it too. Because I mean, God could have told you, because what's the one thing about God? He ain't gonna force you to do nothing. He'll tell you. But if you don't want to listen, you want to be hard-headed, okay, go do your own thing. But you said you listened. That God told you, and you listened. And you followed, and because of that, you have continued to prosper. Now, you didn't say everything was always perfect.
Absolutely. Oh, no. That's another show. That's another show. But I lived it.
So, folks, she's right. That is another show. You need to, because Carmella, for a lot of people, they're under the misperception that once they get on God's team or once they get with God, that everything is going to be milk and honey. And that's not true. Even though you're listening to God, things are still going to come up. There are going to be times where you still miss the mark. That's just the way it is. But it is better to be with God than to not be with God. And that's... Go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but in his words speaks that.
Absolutely.
Like, there's nobody in the Bible that had a perfect life.
That's correct.
There's nobody that God used that was perfect.
That's matter of fact. The more imperfect you were, the better He used you. Because I told you, Moses just straight up said, "No, I do not speak well. Why are you using me?" And God said, "Look, I'll speak for you. You just go do. I'll speak for you." So I mean, there are other situations in the Bible as well as where they talk to God and say, "No, I'm not the one." Yes, you are the one. So. Kind of like your story here. Yes, Carmella, you are the one. Keep doing what you're doing. I mean, this is the thing with when you're working with kids, because kids are kids, teenagers are teenagers. It's not cool to let anyone think that they're listening to what the adults are saying. It's not cool to say, you know what, I want to be like, that's not cool. But deep down inside, they are listening. And I've had kids come back to me that when we were in the school setting 10, 15 years ago, they didn't listen, but they came back and said, you know, I still remember some of the things that you told me. I still remember, you were the only one I thought cared. I mean, the things, I mean, it's just, I mean, it sometimes almost bring tears to your eyes in terms of some of the things that the kids will come back, even when they're adults, and say. And you're going to have, and you probably already had, children that you've dealt with or talked with that have come back to you and said, you know what, if it wasn't for you telling me this, I wouldn't be that. You know what, everybody thought I wouldn't be nothing, but because of your story, now it's God is using you as a vessel. That's where I'm going with this.
Amen. Amen. And definitely people, children come up to me, but also women that I grew up with in the same area environment. I mean, I get messages on Facebook, a lot, inboxes of, please keep going forward because you are showing us and you are being that voice for us. And I'm like, because there's a lot of people who did transition,
right,
like I did. But God has used me to be that voice for those who did transition, and how you can, and like there is light at the end of the tunnel. And there's hope. There's from victim to victory. Like God is using me to be that voice, and I do get that. And the first thing I say is, to God be the glory.
I know that's right.
Because I'm a humble servant. I'm not the one that is like all boastful and proudful as, oh, look what God is doing in me. It's like, no, I'm humble. Every opportunity, Mark, that God has presented to me, I didn't have to chase it. People came to me.
Right.
Like, people came to me and said, okay, this is what you're doing. I want to be able to help, And that's because I'm like, God, I just want to do what you said do, and whatever. I'm not going to move faster than you, I'm not going to go slower than you. So for every door and opportunity, I'm going to move at the pace that you will want me to move. Because some people try to make themselves.
Of course.
And they move really fast, and they go really up high, and then they get to the point, and then they crash and burn.
Absolutely.
I don't want to crash and burn. That's why I'm so hesitant in moving forward. I'm like, you sure? I'm sure. You know, I'm like, okay.
I know that's right. Well, I tell you what, we are in the 7 o'clock hour. There's a couple of things I need to do as we move into the next hour. When we return with our conversation, I will give Carmella the opportunity to tell you all about the GoFund account, all of her contact information, how you can get her in terms of coming to your area to be a speaker, or if you need her to come work with some of your children, or whatever you may need her to do. She's going to give you all that information after I give you the weather and do everything I need to do as we move into the 7 o'clock hour. Don't you dare move. If you haven't done it already, get on your social media sites. We're down to the last few minutes of the interview, but it's still not too late. So let someone know that Carmella's on the air. I've had a big time enjoyment. I was going to say I've been thrilled, so that's what I was really going to say. I've been thrilled to chat with her this morning about her story. It is one that needs to be heard because, again, it's not what happened to her, it's how she reacted to it, because there was a whole lot of space and time for her to be able to say, screw this. This is the hand I was dealt. Therefore, I'm not doing anything. I was born into this foolishness, as she said. So therefore, since I was born in foolishness, I'm going to be a fool. That she did not say. She persevered and continued to move forward with God's help and guidance and direction. And then she took on listening and following. And because of that, she is now being a blessing to others. One of the biggest themes in the church that I've been in for my life, Carmella, has been making life better for others. And that is what you are doing. You're making life better for someone else. And sometimes we go through things that we don't understand. Well, God, why am I going through this? But it's you went through it so that you can make life better for somebody else.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to transition to our 7 o'clock hour, and then we'll give all the contact information. And then for the next 2 hours, Carmella, I put on the gospel music. And I'm going to make sure I find that song, I'm glad I don't look like what I've been through. I'm going to find that song and dedicate it to you.
WPSC-FM 88.7, Wayne, New Jersey.
Part of the William Patterson Broadcast Network. Brave New Radio.
Brave New Radio. Give us your tired, your poor, your hungry, your rockers, your punks, your freaks, your geeks, your Greeks, your party animals, your gangsters, your commuters, your residents, your students, your alums, your lawyers, your truckers, your calls, your tweets. And we'll give you rock, classic, indie, punk, alternative, easy, hard, raps, rhymes, mixes, and drops. We'll give you kick-ass music because we're WPSC 88.7 FM, Brave New Radio. Sound good?
Straight from the WP 88.7 FM Weather Center, here's your local forecast.
All right now in the northern New Jersey area, probably where Carmella is too, is 68.4 degrees. It's clear. Partly cloudy, high of 88. We're going to go to a low of 62. Clear skies tonight. Partly cloudy today, but for the most part, it's clear. And then tomorrow, Sunday, mainly sunny sky, high of 89, low of 66. It's going to be partly cloudy tomorrow night. Then on Monday, 92 is a high, 66 as a low. Isolated thunderstorms in the evening, Monday night. Tuesday, 88 as a high, 62 as a low. Mostly sunny during the day, mainly clear at night. And then on Wednesday, rounding out this forecast, 87 as a high, 62 as a low. Generally sunny, high again of 87, low of 62. Few clouds from time to time on Wednesday night.
Broadcasting from William Patterson University, WP 88.7 FM, Brave New Radio.
Well, that is the weather. As they can say in church, govern yourself accordingly. I always tell you with the weather, equip yourself accordingly, whatever paraphernalia we need. I see the big thing now is folks used to have just umbrellas for rain. Now I see folks walking around with umbrella for sun. So if that's what you need to do, then you go ahead and take that sun umbrella with you, or whatever you need to take off to stay cool. Do that. But that's what the weather is for the next few days. And summer has kicked in. And I am happy about it because like I said, me in winter, while I'm happy to be alive, that is not my favorite season. So I have no problem with the heat. If you've just joined us, my guest for the last hour, it's Carmella Carter, and she's been sharing her story. Now, Carmella, I will tell you this, because we advertised the show quite heavily throughout the weekend. I will say, whenever I saw you put it on your Facebook post, you were saying about how all the different people that text you and tweet you and encourage you, and I saw it, because I mean, Facebook was blown up with various folks sharing and inboxing, and what is that other thing whenever you whatever you do whenever you put it on somebody else's, folks were really they really, all of them that had responded to you were listening this morning. If you are, good morning to you. If you tuned in and clicked in on gobrave.org, good morning to you all. I know I put it on all my social media sites as well. I hope you've heard her story and have been encouraged by it. Whatever you're going through, if you stick with it, you can make it. I mean, even when the odds look against you, if you stick with it. But a lot of times we tend to give up. And there's that old saying, a lot of times we give up right before the breakthrough is about to come through. And so that we don't want to do. So going back to your book project, folks, get your paper and pencils out so that you can write down the website. And I do encourage you, I don't care if it's 50 cents, I don't care if it's $1. Do something in terms of being able to support the project, because again, and I know I'm talking church lingo. So for those of you who may not be in churches or whatever, some of the lingo may sound off, but we talk about sowing seed. We're talking about sowing a good seed, which is kind of like the analogy with a farmer. You know, you put good seed in the ground, you get a good crop. Well, you have your opportunity to sow into Carmella's project. And this is that whole thing in terms of just the law of attraction, the law of giving and receiving. Your name may not be called. Your name may not be written. Carmella may not even know who you are. But you know what? Whatever you give, something is going to come back to you. It will not be in the same vein. It may not be from Carmella. It won't be from Mark. It won't be. But just the fact that you have a spirit of giving will release forces that you will receive. So if you're sitting there saying, well, I don't know, Carmella, I don't know anything about any books, drop all of that. You have an opportunity to get in on the ground floor of a project that's going to bless others. As you heard me say before we gave the weather and all of that, life really is, and if the world got that, we wouldn't have all this killing. We wouldn't have all this everything else. Life really is about making life better for someone else. If each of us made life better for someone else, that means someone else would be making life better for us. And it would be this continuous loop. And everybody's life would be getting better. That's the way it would work. I just don't, Carmella, but it's just amazing to me. People don't get that. The negativity, the killing, the name calling, the pulling each other down, the crab in the barrel mentality, all of that.
I wrote a little bit about that in my book as well, like how on social media the negative things get more likes than the positive things. And then I said, but don't stop posting your positive message, because someone who you are meant to reach, they're going to receive it. So.
Absolutely. I mean, I love social media. Like I said, I never post anything negative on social media. Now, I may post my opinion on something that's going on that may not necessarily be positive as an opinion, but it's not going to be going after somebody, calling names and being derogatory. Most of my posts, if you follow my site, you will see is always some type of a positive message, a quote or something. Again, I don't understand why we need to be on there calling each other female dogs. Why we need to be on there doing all this other stupid stuff that we do on there. I just don't, and yet I do, because I know from the spiritual side, I know what it is from the spiritual standpoint. Satan is on his job, believe me when I tell you that. So I get that, I know that, but it's just whenever you kind of like enlightened, or whenever you kind of like see, you just kind of wonder, life would be so much easier if we would just do right. I'm not saying do perfect, but just do right. I mean, but we're just running around here killing each other and putting each other down. And I don't like you because you black, and I don't like you because you a woman, and I don't like you because you tall, and I don't like you because you fat, I don't like you because you bald. I mean, it's just on and on. Instead of, well, you know what? I do like you because you're, or I like you because you're, or I like you because. But anyway, tell folks how they can get in on the ground floor of your project.
Okay, sure. You can go to my website. My website is www.Carmella Carter, and that's Carmella with 2 L's, so it's CARMELLA Carter, CARTER.com. So that's my website, and it has a host of information about what I do and what I can provide, the services that I can provide. And then the GoFundMe account, so that you can make your seed donations and you can sow to this good ground, is GoFundMe.com/Carmella Carter. And again, that's Carmella with 2 L's.
So if they go to the website, I see up in the right-hand corner, it says donate now. If they click on that, will that take them to the GoFundMe account?
That will not take them to the GoFundMe account, but that goes to the I Am Grace account. So
that goes to the I Am Grace. So the GoFundMe is, what's that one? What's the website again for the GoFundMe account?
And that's GoFundMe.com/Carmella Carter, and that's Carmella with 2 L's.
Okay, so they would just go to GoFundMe with your name.
Yes.
Okay, and that's going toward her book, and when the book comes out, you will know that you had a part of it. And if you want to donate to both, on her I Am Grace site, there is a Donate Now button up to the far right corner, and it has looks like a little broken circle or a jump rope around it, and it says Donate. Be very clear with you so that you go to her site, Carmella. Think of caramel. Just don't put an A in there. Carmella Carter. I used to work with the Carmella when I was at AT&T. Her name was Carmella O'Reilly. And ever since I seen your name, her name has been popping into my head. Carmella Carter.
Could you imagine growing up in a hood with your name Carmella? My name is Carmella, and it was a lady, an older black lady in our neighborhood whose name was Carmella. And they used to always tease me like, you have Miss Carmella's name. And, I wanted so bad my name to be Erica or Narkeisha, but yes, I am Carmella, and I am happy with my name now.
I know that's right. Well, Carmella, I have had a blast, as I thought I would, speaking with you this morning. I wish you nothing but the best, and I know you will continue to be blessed because it's not about you. It's about others, it's about God, and it's about making life better for others. I'm looking at the pictures now that comes through here, working with the kids. Like I said, whenever I get back, I don't go back to work till the 17th, but whenever I talk to my guidance counselor again, I'm going to pass her your information on to her, and you never know what we might be able to hook up, if anything, in the future. But one of the things for my school, I try to expose our kids to everything, anything and everybody and everything possible. If I have an opportunity to expose them, I do, because I honestly believe that would be the key to them being able to, even though what they see at home, to be able to see beyond that. So I try to expose our children to as many opportunities and to as many people as possible. So if we get a chance, because I know our funding and all that kind of stuff up here in Patterson is like crazy, like budget cuts galore. But I mean, if there's a way that we can work something out or something, I don't know, but I'm going to certainly give your information to our guidance counselor. And we'll see, because we're always looking for guest speakers and folks to connect with the kids. And the kids need to see someone who looks like them, who has been in a similar situation and yet have still been able to make it. And the more people that I can expose them to that have done that, the better. So
I do have a YouTube channel that they can subscribe to, and my story is on the YouTube channel as well, and it's I Am Grace.
And, you know, one thing I've done in the past, too, is I've actually had some of the authors I've had on the show do a Skype session with the kids. So maybe it might even be something like I'll put you on Skype and put the kids in the auditorium and they can see you and chat with you. But since you're right here in New Jersey, it'd just be a trip up the turnpike. We'll have to see.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would definitely be there.
But in any event, I keep on, as my mother can say, keep on keeping on. So have a wonderfully blessed day. It's GoFundMe Carmella Carter. If you go to her site, it's carmellacarter.com. The name of her company is I Am Grace. All right. Have a wonderfully blessed day. And if all went well, the show is recorded. I'll send you the YouTube link, and you can share it any manner you wish.
Okay. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
All right. Take care now.
You too. Bye-bye.